Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the MedEd Well podcast, where physicians come to be encouraged and equipped to take the next step in their own wellness journey. Thank you so much for subscribing and for sharing these episodes and for really engaging with these concepts. Today, I am honored to have as a guest Dr. Mikel Segal. Dr. Segal is a physician and ICF certified life coach who supports people in upgrading their life and optimizing their physical, mental, and emotional health. She loves spending time in nature and taking advantage of her proximity to the mountains and ocean on the Pacific coast. Dr. Segal, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much. It's great to be
Thanks.
here.
So tell me a little bit about yourself and your journey to medicine.
Okay, well, thank you for the intro. So yes, I am living near the ocean and the mountains on the Pacific coast. I did my medical training at University of British Columbia. And I think actually I was just reflecting on my journey today while I was out on a walk by the ocean, as a matter of fact. And I was thinking, if I only knew then what I know now, kind of thing. Because I think, as medical students, we're so young, we don't really know what we're getting ourselves into. And I did my bachelor's in science. I was always really interested in science, and I did well in it. So it was just kind of, in a way, almost easy for me to go into, it just seemed like a natural progression of things to apply for medical school. And I got in. And so, yeah, I think, looking back on it, I don't really know if I really understood what I was committing to, but it just kind of felt like, yeah, this could be kind of a good career choice. And, there's lots of positive things about being a physician that I liked, working with people and all the rest. But yeah, I think, it I don't know if there's a way to go about it where people would actually know what they're committing to. I don't think there is a way that anyone could actually know what it's like without having to go through the whole process. But yeah, it was just an interesting reflection on sort of how I got here. So yeah, I did medical school, and then I did residency training in family medicine. And then actually almost immediately I was feeling like, gosh, I don't know if I want to be a family doctor, because there was things about it that I just found very challenging, especially I found sort of the people. I was doing a lot of walk-in clinics. So people tend to go to walk-in clinics because they need something rather urgently, and they have an agenda, so they want something from you. And it's great if you sort of agree with whatever it is that they want, but there was a lot of conflict that occurred if there was, if my assessment didn't match what they thought they needed, and I found that really challenging, and I didn't enjoy that. So, anyways, I was like, yeah, after all this, I'm not sure this is what I want to be doing. But the great thing about being a family doctor, or a doctor in general, is that there's lots of opportunities, and there's lots of things you can do with your skills. I know some of the other specialties are a little bit more limiting, but with family medicine, there's so many different things you can do with it, which is great. So I just tried out a whole bunch of different things, sort of different clinics, different kind of workplaces with kind of a focus on different things. So I did a bit of work in the ICU. I did a bit of work up north in the Arctic, and eventually found my way to hospital medicine, which ended up for me being a pretty good fit, because I enjoyed the sort of working amongst a group of specialists and as a team. And so that's where I've been for quite a number of years now, mainly, but I do a lot of other things. And that's what I've kind of come to appreciate about medicine is that there's so much opportunity, and you can kind of dip your foot in here and there. And for me, I was really missing the sort of creative, um, a way to sort of um, use my creative energies a bit more. And so I've just started doing that a bit more within medicine and outside of medicine. And it's given me the opportunity to do that with my skills. So yeah,
Mm,
that's a long story, but that's kind of my journey.
mm. Well, thanks for sharing the journey.
Yeah.
It's sometimes, yeah, it's hard to know what you're really getting into and
Yeah.
what it really feels like
Yeah.
until you've actually been there. I only had maybe a week of shadowing in the hospital before I took the MCAT and went to medical school. And I'm
Yeah.
just really thankful that it turned out to be the right choice for me. But I think even once you're through training, like you noted,
Mhm.
it's there are options, though we may not have seen that because being in one particular program, maybe your attendings or role models, mentors have only taken a small spectrum of the many paths that you could take in medicine. I didn't
Exactly.
have any of my attendings that had done rural wilderness medicine, that
Hmm.
had done a whole lot of urgent care or locums work. And so, yeah, there's just more out there than I think any of us realize before going to medicine or even right after training.
Yeah, exactly.
Hmm. So, what were some of the things that really helped you make some of those transitions to say, okay, I've tried this, maybe I want to try something else? How did you work through that? And was it
Yeah.
a good thing or was it just a, you came up against some hard things?
Well, a little bit of both. I mean, I think I've always been the type of person who thinks a little bit outside the box. So I was always kind of keeping my ear and eye out for, so what could I do, a little bit different. And then I think, but I did, as I said, sort of kind of settle into doing my hospitalist medicine. And I was fairly content doing that. And then I had kids. And I think like coming out of that, I was totally exhausted, probably
Mm,
mostly because I wasn't sleeping well. And when I came back, I didn't feel very good. And I was just really thinking, I don't know how I'm gonna continue on this way.
mm,
I don't know if I was actually burnt out, like as, uh, as a formal sort of thing, but I definitely wasn't feeling great. And and then I was really starting to look at what else I could be doing. And I started attending different conferences like on lifestyle medicine, anti-aging, and then I kind of found my way into coaching. I discovered coaching. I'd never even heard of coaching before. And I was at a conference, and one of the physicians there was talking about being a coach, and it just blew my mind. I was like, wow, sounds amazing. Like, so that was when I really discovered coaching and then went down that whole pathway. But yeah, I think so. It wasn't like I didn't have like a really low point, but it was just kind of feeling like I can't continue on like this, and and just kind of exploring what there was out there, and certainly like doing the lifestyle medicine and the coaching. It's kind of built into my lifestyle, and what's worked for me,
mhm,
and um, and then I use that with my coaching as well in terms of all the stuff on like resilience and positive psychology and all the kind of stuff all the tools that you can bring to kind of improve your life. Yeah.
yeah. Well, and just seeing how your unique interests and like opportunities, just taking that and exploring that and just being aware of how you're feeling, how you're experiencing that in that season of life
Yeah.
where you had kids and this was your current work experience, and to say, how's that how's that working for you? How's that really resonating with you, as you might say, in more of a coaching lens? But it really just comes down to where are you at, and then what's important to you, and where do you want to go.
Yeah. Yeah. I think as soon as I came up for like, I mean, obviously at first with the kids and working, I was just in survival mode. But as soon as I kind of just was able to get my head above that water, I was like, okay, I got it. Something has to shift here. So for me, that meant just like exploring other opportunities. Yeah.
Hmm. So, is that your first kind of moment realizing the importance of resilience, or had you kind of built that in along the way?
Um, yeah, it's funny. Like my parents were always kind of interested in that kind of stuff, although I never really paid it much attention because I always figured I mean they were kind of out there a little bit, and just having that science mind, I was like, oh, that's woo woo kind of stuff. But once you start going to these conferences, and now there's so much data and there's so much science behind it all, that's when I could really get behind it all. I was like, actually, they knew what they were talking about. They didn't have the data behind them at the time, but
Hmm.
now it's there. And for me, I needed that, right? I needed to have the science. So once I kind of understood that a lot of this is makes sense, then I was 100% behind it. Yeah.
How has getting into coaching helped you with your own resilience, and then walking other physicians through developing resilience?
Yeah, I think, well, the coaching, I mean, there's two sides of it. There's sort of like the actual coaching, which I think anyone could benefit from being coached. I mean, coaching is is just a way to support somebody, like to sort of be there and be their kind of container for them, like just hold space for them and whatever they need at the time, whatever they're working through. So I personally think anyone would benefit from coaching, anyone who wants to do something with their life
Hmm.
or change anything in their life, right? So that's
Hmm.
the whole coaching piece. But sort of the things that you learn in it in most coaching programs, to be a good coach, to listen, um, to hear what people are saying in a different way, right? And to ask questions. Um, so it makes you think about things differently. And the whole metacognition, like thinking about our
Mm.
thoughts, for me was really interesting. Um, and so trying to point out when other people have like thoughts that aren't serving them well, or beliefs that are holding on to these limiting beliefs. So that whole piece really was new for me, and I find very interesting. And then the piece of resilience, like in terms of your sleep, your nutrition, a lot of that stuff I was kind of doing already on my own, but just kind of up leveling it even more. So just kind of learning all the science behind it for my own personal use, and I can share it if it's applicable, um, to whoever I'm coaching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if someone's saying, I want to develop more resilience and how I deal with the stressors in my
Yeah.
own clinical practice, where would you encourage them to start?
Well, I think just saying that is the biggest step that's needed. So just kind of acknowledging and asking for help, um,
Mm.
is the most important step. And that's the one, you're already like close to the finish line once you've already just asked for help. So I'd say
Mm.
that's the biggest take home, is just to sort of ask for help if you think you might need it. And then there's a lot of like resilience, there's lots of different pieces that go into resilience, right? So really kind of looking at where you need a little bit more help in the whole big picture of what builds your resilience. So whether it's sort of nutrition, sleep, exercise, or whether it's sort of more your like the positive psychology stuff. So your attitude, your thoughts, your beliefs, there's so many, who your social supports are. There's so many different pieces to the puzzle, and it's going to be different for everyone. But I'd say like number one is sort of just ask for help or get help. And, from there, it should be much easier.
Mm.
Yeah.
So once you've kind of identified with someone what those first steps are, what do you see as some of those big limiting beliefs that may underlie even their ability to get enough sleep, to be able to prioritize exercise or nutrition? Is it just that people say they don't have enough time, or what are the things that you
Yeah.
hear?
Time, like work life, like the balance. But yeah, it's all a matter of time, prioritizing time, or like they've tried it before and it hasn't worked, that kind of thing. But I'd say, yeah, time is a big one for sure, especially as physicians, right?
Hmm.
Have enough time.
What do you see as some of the big threats to physician wellness? Why people need to develop this resilience? Maybe some of the factors that are intrinsic to physicians, and maybe some that are more the system in which many of us practice these days.
Yeah, I mean, I think the system is a big part of it. And I think a lot of the studies have shown that, like in looking at physician burnout, that a lot of it is systemic and more like the system that needs to change. But there's certainly like individual factors within each physician that can be worked on, and and then that will sort of dictate how you respond to these systemic issues. So the systemic issues, yes, they need to be fixed. And we won't go into what all those are, but you can build your own resilience and ways of coping so that you may not react in the same way to those
Mm.
sort of all those systemic issues. But trauma, we as physicians, even as individuals, but like the penetrance is 100%. So we're all carrying some trauma, and
Mhm.
whether or not we realize it or not. And, we're going to get activated by certain things. And so just finding ways to recognize that and not get activated, um, is really helpful.
Mhm.
So yeah.
And just having that self-compassion. So often in medicine
Yeah.
we're about showing compassion and giving, but
Yeah.
realizing that some of those things may remind us of prior traumas, patients
Yeah.
that have had just a really traumatic course that we've been intimately involved walking alongside them through some of their hardest times.
Yeah.
And to realize that that affects us, or just things that may have been ways of thinking, or yeah, just how we experienced either being in medical school, being in training, um, just that served us then to get by, that maybe now it's still affecting us and we don't even realize it. I found that for myself in terms
Mhm.
of like money scarcity, or just thinking that I had to be doing something,
Mhm.
or that if I was sitting and doing nothing, that wasn't okay. It's like it, the intentional rest when there's so much activity, and it's like, well, you should be studying for boards or for your shelf exam or something else, and yet that intentional rest and self-care can really be part of some of those things you mentioned for
Exactly.
resilience.
Yeah.
So where do you see um, positions maybe that are coming out of training now versus when you finish training? What do you see as some of the differences in how they go about some of these things that go into resilience? Do you think there's a difference, or?
Well, I do. I'm part of the faculty, so I do teach some of the medical students, and I know they get way more than we get because we got nothing.
Mm.
So they do get a little bit more, just even in their modules and stuff. Um, learning about what, even for example, exercise and nutrition. Like we didn't have anything on any kind of training on that, and they are learning a little bit about it. So I think they're getting a bit more and maybe a little bit more aware of how important that is.
Do you think some of the faculty are then getting some of that from their interactions with their trainees, or is that something that maybe is negatively affecting, say, the senior attendings, that maybe
Yeah, I don't know.
there's a gap?
It's hard to say. I think part of it is the science. So the science is there now, so maybe it's just more acceptable. Um, and I think there's a lot of push to bring that kind of training to the medical students, and yeah, I think they've seen what's happened to a lot of physicians, and so to bring that awareness to the new students, so maybe they'll have a little bit more tools and resources so it doesn't happen to them. Hard to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you had to leave our listeners today with one piece of advice that you'd have for someone that's wanting to improve their resilience, what would you tell them?
Well, I think, as I said before, just ask for help or look, reach out to somebody. There's lots of great coaches out there. There's lots of resources. Most institutions have some sort of wellness committee. There might be some free resources within, your own institution. But, so that might be a good start, but certainly just, if you find someone that you feel like you connect with, who's a coach or who, is in the wellness community, that would be a good first step.
Thanks for that. So if someone wants to learn more about you, how to work with you, where might they be able to find you?
Yeah, well, thanks for asking. Well, I'm on Instagram and I'm on LinkedIn and I'm on Facebook, mikelsegalmd.com. And I also have a website, www.mikelsegalmd.com.
Wonderful. And
Thank you.
I'll pass along a link. You have a free guide to help improve your sleep.
Yes, I do. That's right.
And I'll put the link in the show notes or description.
Thank you so much. It's been so great to be here.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Bye.
So for all of you listening, I want you to consider how you can apply what you've learned from Dr. Segal in today's discussion. And then please share this podcast with another doctor in your life and subscribe. Leave us a review, and that really helps get the word out there so that each of the physicians out there and other medical professionals that need to hear these messages can really take that opportunity to hear, to pause and reflect, and to grow. You can help change the culture of medicine and promote wellness for your patients, your colleagues, and yourself. Thank you so much for all that you do, and have a great day.
Love that. Thank you.